Welcome back, everybody. Another week of NFL football's in the books. You're dialed into the Food for Thought podcast where we go off the rails a little bit. I'm the Luch. I'm here with Will Priester. What a week in football. A lot riding on the line. Multiple days of NFL games. We had a treat with a 3-gamer on Saturday. A lot of people were dealing with their season-long fantasy playoffs. The best ball playoffs are in full swing. A lot of big prize pools on DraftKings, FanDuel, and other competing sites. And here we are. We are in the thick of the playoff hunt. And Will Priester, I'm really looking forward to Elephant in the Room because there's only one thing I know for sure, and that is Tier 2. We talked about tiers in the NFL, and we did our ranking system a couple of weeks ago. There are no rules in Tier 2. Anything goes in Tier 2. You might see 40-0 games one week, and then the reverse script between the same two teams 3 weeks later or something like that. Anything goes in Tier 2. The gloves come off. What's going on, buddy? It's Monday. We're before Monday Night Football here. There's a lot of question marks for Monday Night Football, so we can't exactly dive into all that. We can talk about some of that stuff because there were some more coaching changes between the Philadelphia Eagles organization. But what's one big thing from this week of football that you're taking away?
I think I'm taking away that I have now graduated Tier 1 to 2 teams that I think are true Tier 1 teams. And believe it or not, Luch, I think they get it done in a similar fashion, but they have slightly different pieces and maybe not as elite pieces at the skill position areas. But they've got a quarterback that just seems to run away from everybody. So the Ravens are going to graduate to Tier 1 this week all the way. And right now, to me, it's San Francisco and it's Baltimore. And perhaps, Luch, I'm not saying that this is true. Perhaps these two teams are on some form of a collision course for the Super Bowl. Perhaps. I feel like all roads are going to lead through Baltimore at this point. Now, we got to see what happens with Miami. But to me right now, I feel like Baltimore is the team to beat. Like we saw Miami have a hiccup the week before. And while Baltimore had their hiccups early, Luch, I just think they're probably the most complete team in the AFC on both sides of the ball. Now, once again, here's what I will say. If Miami gets out on Baltimore to some type of a 17-0 lead, then we're going to see if this Baltimore offense can really fly down the field. Now, we've seen it in a sense, Luch, because I saw them score pretty quickly last night against Baltimore. Against Jaguars. I saw some glimpses of hope for an explosive offense in terms of how fast they can score. I have seen that. But I still think they're the best team in the AFC, for what it's worth. I think the Ravens are the best, and they're getting it done with, I feel like, less talent at the skill position than any other team in the AFC, which really, I think, in my opinion, gives them the right to be Tier 1. Everybody else is Tier 2 in my book in the NFL right now.
Especially without Mark Andrews in the fold. But kudos to Isaiah Likely stepping up. Beckham, when healthy, has shown us some flashes of OBJ from 5 years ago.
Rashard Bateman didn't do anything last night, and neither did Zay Flowers. Neither did Isaiah Likely got involved. They hit a big play for the tight end, but the receivers virtually did nothing yesterday. And Baltimore won this game convincingly. Like, you see what I'm saying, Luch? Like, they won 23-7, and it feels like they won 40-0. Like, that's what it felt like. The Jaguars, miscues a whole bunch of turnovers, but that's what I'm saying with Baltimore. Like, the wide receiver room basically did nothing yesterday, and they pretty much ran away with this game from start to finish. Unbelievable.
Jacksonville kind of imploding and reeling, and we're starting to see that AFC South just becoming a cluster. The Texans, huge win in Tennessee without their entire offense, and that bumps them up. And, the Texans were the biggest Ravens fans yesterday. But that was just such a typical Tier 2 game for the Jaguars. And they're like almost Tier 2B in my eyes right now. We saw, 2 missed field goals. We saw just, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he was just bad. His accuracy was not there. Just fumbling, dropping the ball. Like, I feel like he was seeing ghosts out there, as the saying was once, 3 to 4 years ago. And I'm not saying Trevor Lawrence is a bad quarterback. He's a starting quarterback, and I still think he has, more of a ceiling. But I could probably speak for most people that we expected more of a leap. And I know he's at this point probably not, 100% healthy, but who is at this point of the season? I don't really want to make that excuse for him. He looks poised back there. He has mobility. He's intelligent. He has all of those intangibles that you want in a quarterback. I guess I'm just disappointed seeing the lack of a leap. You look back at the fantasy game log, you see some really nice games in the last month, but he was really sucking out rushing touchdowns, near the goal line and stuff like that. But if you watch the game, he missed so many throws, and some of them weren't even close. And that's kind of a testament to Baltimore's defense, I suppose, when you look at it that way. But what excuses do you have left for Trevor Lawrence? Because here we are, it's 2023. He's got coaching stability under his belt finally, and it's Doug Peterson. We've seen 2 years now, like 2+ years. This guy's supposed to be your like one of your best bets to kind of develop that quarterback, right? They went out and got weapons. They spent money. They brought Calvin Ridley in. You brought Zay Jones in. You bring Evan Ingram in. You draft Travis Etienne. I know the offensive line is not fantastic, but most of these teams that we talk about in tier 2 and tier 3, there are holes on these teams. That's why they're not elite. They're not complete football teams. But the Jags missed so many opportunities yesterday to make it a game, and that score might have been a little bit deceiving as it kind of got away from them there. And just, we're going to talk more about clock management soon, because I actually want to talk about that before we dive into the Bills. I want to talk about a big clock management conundrum. But in this game before halftime, it was piss poor clock management from Trevor Lawrence, Doug Peterson company, who were inside in the red zone, ran out of time, just zero awareness, and didn't get any points on the board before halftime. On top of missing 2 field goals, they left 13 points, plus on the board going into the third quarter. And you can't do that against one of the food for thought tier 1 teams, the new tier 1 team in the Baltimore Ravens, because you're just not going to win many football games. So I'm just really disappointed overall. And I'm an unbiased Titans fan. There's holes galore in that team. It's been ugly. They lost some one-score games. They lost a lot of personnel. But I'm saying, like, the Jags should have had this division in a stranglehold right now, especially with the C.J. Stroud, Tank Dell, all those injuries, and they haven't. But it's not like they're out of the race. They're still in the thick of it. I think ESPN gave them a 50% chance of making the playoffs after the loss last night. Just disappointed, like, especially after last season. Expected some more ascension here, Chief.
Listen, man. I mean, I've been kind of low on the Jags since earlier this season, and I know they squeezed out a few, but they did. Listen, after that Kansas City game, that showed me all I need to see from the Jacksonville Jaguars this season. That game was horrendous, and they were at home. Like, something's missing with this team, and look, they're not getting it done. Now, me, Luch. I like to be fair here. And for all intents and purposes, I think there was a big debate between Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, I think, coming out of their draft. And I feel like Trevor Lawrence has had a much better situation outside of the coaching debacle hire his first year. He's had a much better situation. And we don't see anyone thinking that Trevor Lawrence shouldn't be the quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars, but we're ready to crucify Justin Fields when his situation has been way worse. Way worse. And he's had to do a whole lot with way less. A whole lot more with way less. But we're okay getting rid of Justin Fields, but we're not okay getting rid of Trevor Lawrence. I think there's some bias there. The same way we were ready to get rid of Andy Dalton. And here's my thing. I think sometimes I think the media can sway opinions and things like that. And I think sometimes that's wrong. Why am I bringing that up? I want to go to the Chicago Bears game from this week where these guys, for all intents and purposes, they're playing a playoff team in the Browns. And I mean, they're a Hail Mary away from winning a football game, but that's going to go in the L column. And at the end of the season, Luch, we're going to look back. We're going to say, well, the Bears went out and got DJ Moore. But, I mean, that's it. Now, they've been kind of beefing up the defense here lately, right? Going out to get some defensive pieces. And at the end of the season, Luch, I feel confident saying that the Bears are going to have a new quarterback. But the Jacksonville Jaguars are still going to be stuck with Trevor Lawrence.
It's business.
But this is what we're seeing, Luch. I'm bringing this up for a variety of reasons, because where you end up matters. And I'm going to parlay this into something. Where you end up when you're drafted matters a whole lot, right? We we go out to the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. If Josh Allen's on the Bears, he's probably written off. If Josh Allen goes to the Browns and they have 20 million losing seasons, they're written off. Baker Mayfield got drafted by the Cleveland Browns, and he looks to have possibly found a home in Tampa Bay. Possibly. He's bounced around a little bit, but where you end up matters. Jared Goff got drafted by the Rams. They ran him out of town, basically did a swap for him and Matt Stafford, and now he's in Detroit looking like he's going to carry this team to the playoffs. And I know I'm bouncing around here, but there's a method to the madness, Luch, because what did we start this show talking out about? We started talking about tiers. That's how we kicked the show off, with our tiers discussion. And right now, we feel like San Francisco and Baltimore are the creme de la creme right now. What if Brock Purdy gets drafted by the Broncos? What? Trust me, he's probably still on the practice squad or not even in the NFL. You get what I'm saying, Luch? We go round and round in the circle and round, but the organization you go to, how they view the situation, how the new coaches view you, how the GM views you, how your teammate, all these things come into fruition, come into play. And I'm headed back up to tier one. I'm headed back up to tier one to talk about these two teams. Why is that? When you end up in the right situation, you have competent GMs, you have competent coaching, Luch. You get competent offensive linemen and defensive linemen. Suddenly, teams take off. It's not rocket science. When I look at the San Francisco 49ers, what do I see? I see a team that has a competent GM with Lynch. I see a team that has competent coaching with Shanahan. I see a team that's invested into the offensive line, right? Luch, on the other side, I see a team that, while they may have been struggling early this season, they went out mid-season and made some investments, right? And went and got Chase Young. They constantly invest in the right places. Constantly. When I look at the Baltimore Ravens, yes, Luch, we're sitting here. Now, this is what we're saying, Luch, and I mean this. This is what we're saying as fans. Please get Lamar Jackson some help. My God, can we get him some skill position players? And what do they do every year? They treat him like prime Tom Brady. They don't go and get DeAndre Hopkins. They don't go and get Mike Evans. They drafted Zay Flowers in the draft. They went and got an aging Odell Beckham Jr. They picked up Isaiah Likely randomly, in the draft. But the offensive line is solid. The defensive line is solid. The linebacking core is solid. The back end is solid. This is how they're building this team. They're saying, screw your skill position. We're going to build this thing the right way. And, Luch, when I sit back and look at it, look at what we have at the end of the day. Two teams that look like the cream of the crop for the NFL. Now, I'm not saying Dallas didn't build their team the right way, but they have some holes. As tenacious as this defense is supposed to be, man, they just got ramrodded yesterday. I mean, kept lining up, and it wasn't 3 yards in the cloud of dust. I'm talking about 8 yards of carry here on some of these, Luke. We look at the Eagles. They've got issues on defense, right? We look at who else we consider a top-tier team. We look at the Lions. Their defense has not been able to get a whole lot of pressure, and they're going to have to probably just start generating pressure. My point is, situation matters. GM matters. Where you end up matters, Luch. And I think at the end of this season, as we wind down and start looking at playoff teams, I think we're going to start seeing some magical things because of how the stars align for some of these players in these organizations. And that's what makes tier one. That's the difference between tier one to me and tier two and tier three, where teams are just not getting it right. No stability. Last but not least, now I'll hand the mic back. Yeah, the Carolina Panthers won yesterday, but that organization is terrible right now. Just terrible. Along with the Falcons and Arthur Smith, who should be out of the door today. He's not going to be out of the door today. I think he makes it through the whole season, but he's got to go.
I think I think they bring him back. Well, I don't think it's the right move, but I think they bring him back.
As many times as Arthur Smith comes back, as many times as they're going to win an NFC championship. None. And I actually said that the wrong way, but I think there's going to be a lot of turnover. And Luch, I think if teams want to become tier one, as the two teams we talked about, I think it starts with lining up the GM and lining up the coach so they're in sync, and then they can go out and build this thing the right way.
So I think the one word that separates tier one from tier two of our food for thought little ranking system here is consistency. It's consistency. You're not getting these tier 2 40 to 10 lopsided games. I'm still a firm believer that the Lions are not ready this year, but they're a good playoff team. And I was wrong. I took Denver with the points. Two teams I can't figure out all year is Denver and Detroit. Detroit's gone out and gotten mollywopped in some games. They come out, run train on the Broncos, right? I mean, it wasn't even a football game here. So hats off to Detroit. Jared Goff, doing his thing.
They were at home, by the way. They were at home.
But hey, that's what you're supposed to do. You take care of business against a quality Denver Broncos team. So huge win. Jared Goff absolutely carrying some people to the semifinals in best ball, by the way. So really nice week to have Jared Goff. If you do, good luck. Hats off to you. Hopefully you paired him with Sam Laporta, because that was just a thorough butt kicking there. But that's some of the inconsistencies with Detroit we've seen. They come across country to have a big test against Baltimore and get schwacked like it was a Bills Cowboys slaughter. So those tier 2 teams. I mean, Dallas looks like world beaters, like we were talking about, and the Bills are a tier 2 team because they have many holes and injuries too. And Dallas didn't even get off the bus. I mean, you can say what you want. There are people who are big on momentum and coming off highs and this and that, and they dominated the Eagles the week before. But you're Dallas, what's at stake. And the Bills had a lot at stake as well. Their odds are down to 12-1 on BetMGM, by the way. So if the Bills get in and get hot, I mean, look out. We don't have to spend a lot of time on them because we've spent so much time on them the last couple of weeks. So I got my 35-1 ticket in my pocket, and hopefully I have some good decision making to make. But sticking in that division right there, Miami comes out, they hold Tyreek Hill out, and a cap tip to Miami. They took care of business. The Jets are a little bit more of a mess than I think you or I would want to give them credit for, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I did not expect a 30-0 game there. I thought the Jets would make it a little more of a Jets game, a little uglier, but it didn't happen, and Jalen Waddle went off. Tua said, put some respect on my name, and played well. And, we're good. Again, we talked about the last 3 weeks, the gauntlet that most teams have went through in the regular season. Miami still hasn't gone through, and they're about to go through. Miami plays Dallas, coming off of an ass kicking at home at Hard Rock. Is going to be a fascinating, see how Dallas rebounds. At the same time, this would be like the first staple win for Miami for me, is beat Dallas by a touchdown at home, and I'm on board with your Super Bowl upside if the roadmap lays out in your favor in the AFC. And as complete as the Ravens are, like you mentioned, they're a team that you don't want to play too far from behind on. They kind of need neutral game script still. Maybe some people are sick of that narrative, but you're absolutely right. And Miami plays Baltimore week 17 in Baltimore. That's like make this a game. I don't even need Miami to win that game. I need them for it to be within a touchdown, right? And then I'll hit my I'm a believer button. And then they end the season with Buffalo at home. So I'm excited to, and this is not me bashing Miami. This is me we're going to figure out who and what the Dolphins are made out of, and they were able to give Tyreek Hill another week of rest. You're going to go play Dallas, who likes to play man coverage and send pressure. You're going to go play Baltimore, who's playing a little more zone than usual, but they're going to get some pressure. And then, of course, you got the Bills. Maybe it's a revenge spot for Miami, who got absolutely whacked earlier in the season, which was one of their early tests, and they didn't show up for that game.
I am expecting Miami to win that game because they're at home. I do expect Miami to win that one. And so let me say this too, Luke. Miami is a team that's, I think, they're ascending. Now, I'm not saying they're going to tier 1 this season, but I'm saying getting Jalen Ramsey on that defense and getting their defense back, getting some continuity for a few games has helped them. Now, once again, that loss 2 weeks ago, still, I'm not forgetting that. You still imagine if they won 2 weeks ago, beat Tennessee, your team, which they were supposed to beat. They beat Tennessee and then they beat the Jets. Now we're starting to see some separation here. Losing to Tennessee is still in my mind. I don't trust this team, but I do think at home they should be able to take care of business against Buffalo, even though Buffalo seems to be ascending.
Really, really, really gutsy win by Houston. No excuses. Tennessee extremely shorthanded all year, but Houston, Case Keenum first start of the season. No Tank Dell, no Nico Collins. Jeffrey Simmons out for the Titans. I knew that would be huge, and they also cut Tahir Tart. Who, if you follow defensive lineman, Tahir Tart is going to be should find a home and be an asset next year to someone's favorite football team, as long as he can keep his head on his shoulders, because he's a little bit of a head case. And Devin Singletary ran right over them, right through the Titans defense, and just huge win for Houston. Will Levis got hurt. I was holding my breath. Looked like an ankle or a leg. I thought he broke it. I wasn't sure. And no, he didn't play the best either. But you spoke about situations and play calling, and it matters for coaches too. But here's the case of the Titans just atrocious play calling, and offensive coordinator Tim Kelly. I'm not exactly sure what his gripe is with trying to run Derrick Henry into the ground. I really don't understand. I know this is the identity, but I'm getting a little skeptical of the play calling here. I mean, Henry was bottled, and you look at fantasy data points, great site. Houston ranked number 1 in allowing adjusted rushing yards before contact. So this is a very good rushing defense. And up until, late in the fourth quarter, this is every first down play of every drive. I'm sorry, every first down play, right? Every first down play. Derrick Henry run 2 yards. Derrick Henry run -3 yards. Pass to Derrick Henry 3 yards. Derrick Henry 0 yards. Tajay Spear 1 yard. Pass to Treylon Burks 20 yards. Okay. Tajay Spears run -5 yards. Derrick Henry run 5 yards. Derrick Henry -3 yards. Derrick Henry -2 yards. Derrick Henry 2 yards. Derrick Henry -7 yards. Derrick Henry 2 yards. At some point, you got to swallow your pride. We know who Derrick, and it's taking nothing away from Derrick Henry, who was still an asset. But if you're getting bottled up on every single first down play, and I'm an armchair GM, what do we know? And we're going to get into some more terrible coaching decisions very shortly on the show. But it's 2023, and you have Will Levis, who's shown you a lot. Came off a legacy comeback against the Dolphins. You need to throw the ball on first down in this league. Not all the time,
or 50% of the time at least. Or
what are we doing here?
Or 30% of the time. Just have some creativity, Luch. And this is something I think we've talked about, which is why I hate the Carolina Panthers this season. Where's the creativity? Where's the imagination to just be creative, be explosive, take some shots? I don't get it.
I know establishing the run's important. You don't have to establish the run by establishing the run. If you start airing it out, that thing's going to open it up, and you have the perfect quarterback and wide receiver combination to do it. You open it up early and
Luch,
establish the run through the pass. It's so
Luch,
stupid.
listen to me. Listen to
Mind
me
blowing.
here.
Mind blowing. Stupid.
Derrick Henry, I took Derrick Henry's season-long rushing yards at I think 1,175 yards. Let me check. I want to make sure that I'm being accurate here. I don't want to lie to the American people, and I don't want to lie to myself. Yes, 1175 and a half. I took more than that projection. Luch, 3 weeks ago, Derrick Henry had like 800 yards. 3 weeks ago. Luch, at that time, I think Derrick Henry needed to average 60, somewhere between 60 and 70 yards to get there a game. Since that time, I feel like Derrick Henry's had a 20-yard rushing game, a 30-yard rushing game, and then yesterday like a 9-yard rushing game on 15 carries. Like, what is happening here?
They're giving him the ball on first down a lot.
It's so bad. Like, I think I'm in danger of missing this. How many more games do they have? I think they have, 3 games?
Mm-hmm.
They play the Seahawks next week. They're at home. God, I hope Derrick Henry rushes for 200 yards, because if not, I think I'm dead. The week after that, they go to the Texans. Can't expect them to do much against that defense right now. And then they close it out, Luke, with the Jaguars coming to Tennessee. And that's it.
Yeah.
I've got 3 weeks for Derrick Henry to basically get 300 yards. That's not happening. Just
not
kill
in
my,
this,
just
not
kill my
system.
season long.
Yep.
My gosh, what is that?
There's so much ineptness, and these guys have been doing this thing their whole lives, coming up through different systems, collegiate level, NFL level, working their way up through certain coaching trees and organizations, and still we sit here and I'm just a guy. But I can show you what you're running on every first down. I can see that dumb trend that apparently you can't pick up on. It's not rocket science here. Ryan Tannehill's not your quarterback anymore. You have a guy who's leading the year, one of the league leaders in air yards and yards per attempt, and we've seen his rocket arm. It's not Ryan Tannehill.
Listen to me. Anyway, I'm not going to turn on my accent, but here's what I'm saying, Luch.
You have an accent?
Yes, I can turn it on. I have multiple accents, by the way.
Do you?
Yes. That just comes from my years of just imitating people. For those of you that don't know, I did used to do stand-up comedy in college, so that's where a lot of that came from. Here's the deal. Luch, they could go hard play action on every first down for the rest of the year and probably pick up 10 yards every play at this point. Because what has the data told them? Like, for anybody that's kind of deep diving or just watching the film, don't worry about it, guys. Just be patient. They're going to run the ball on first down. So if they know that, Luch, I think the first play of the next game, I come out, I go hard play action. And I mean hard too. I'm talking about jumbo set, maybe one wide receiver out there, maybe just D-Hop. Hard play action, and I'm sending Chigo Okonkwo and the crew out on every route possible. And I'm saying, hey, we're going to get you. Then maybe the next play, Luch, maybe I go 4 wide. Maybe I just spread the whole thing out. Keep Derrick Henry out there. Throw it again. Third down, Luch, or maybe we pick up a first down now. Maybe I go 4 wide, and maybe I give it to Derrick Henry on a draw. Ooh. The
other problem is here. I think they are trying to protect Levis because the offensive line right now, you have a 7th round rookie in Jalen Duncan starting. You have an undrafted player named Calvin Throckmorton, who I just discovered was a human being 2 weeks ago when I saw him, inserted into the football game. Aaron Brewer, center, top 5 among centers and pressures allowed. You have a 49ers cast off in Brunskill, who's a journeyman that Grant Carthon brought in, and you have Dylan Radin, it's just a failure of a project. So I understand that, like, bigger picture. Like, I actually appreciate it a little bit, but Levis still almost died out there. Like, he almost broke his ankle out there anyway. So I get that aspect. while we're at it, and maybe this will be our last elephant in the room, and we can tie some things in with our look ahead. Again, we're just guys. We're just guys. I like to call ourselves experts. Maybe. I think we are. I'm modest. We know what we're doing. I mean, we sift through so much data. I can't say I know everything, and I certainly don't. But again, we're not affiliated with any NFL organization, right? We're not. We're not coaching. I have minimal coaching, experience, high school, collegiate stuff. I don't really coach. You coach, right? But we're not professional sports coaches. What on God's green earth happened in that Commanders Rams game? I have never seen so much ineptness from a coaching staff. I don't know who's to blame. Is it Ron Rivera? Is it Eric Bieniemy? Is it both of them? I mean, the situation is as follows. Sam Howell gets benched. Okay. Jacoby Brissett comes in and offers a spark. All right. Okay. Are you going to go back to Sam Howell next week? What's his ego looking like? This is your guy you're supposed to be sticking with. That's a separate conversation. I'll let you follow up on that. But the Rams were up by 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. The Commanders get down to the 2-yard line. They get stuffed a few times. And there's five and change on the clock.
It was awful. And they had a penalty.
Almost 6. Penalty.
I think they scored a touchdown and then there was a penalty which pushed them back.
So on fourth down, McLaurin drew a DPI. They get back to first and goal. They get stuffed again. And what did they do? They let the clock run down to the 2-minute warning. They're down by 2 touchdowns. They didn't. Yeah. They huddled every play during this goal situation. I think they ran 6
just
or 7
to hand to Chris Rodriguez for -1, -3.
They ran the play clock down to 5. There was no urgency. How valuable is that time from 5 and change to the 2-minute warning left in the game? Those are probably the 3 most valuable minutes outside of the 2-minute warning. I know that sounds stupid in football, but if you get the ball in the end zone with 5 minutes left,
yeah,
then
you have a chance to onside kick. Stop. You don't even have to take your timeouts right away, because you maybe on first down when they run it, Luch, and you get a stop. You say, okay, I'll give them 40 seconds, right? So you're down because I think there was 5:36-ish maybe left when they got the ball. I was kind of following that game. Somewhere up in there. Let's just call it 5 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And you score, you kick it off. They run it on first down. You stop them. They pick up 2 yards. I think that's reasonable. They pick up 2. 2nd and 8. You stop them. They take 40 seconds off the clock. So you're down to, 4 minutes, 50 seconds. Right? They run it again. They pick up 3 yards. Now it's 3rd and 5, Luch. And they're going to throw the ball on 3rd and 5, right? Because now they need to pick up the first up because they want more time. So they ran another 45 seconds off the clock. And now they're down to 4 minutes, 5 seconds. And maybe, Luch, you call the timeout there. Maybe. And because now you feel like they're going to throw the ball. And if you get a stop, then you don't. Or, Luch, you could say, okay, this one other one. You say, okay, we let this one ride. They throw the ball. It's incomplete. We don't have any turnovers. Or we stop them ahead of first down. Then we take our timeout. You get what I'm saying? But you can play it that way when you've got 3. And you say, okay, we take the timeout here, or we don't. If they throw it and it's incomplete or it's broken up or whatever, now, Luch, you've got roughly 4 minutes or 3 minutes 30. Let's just call it 3 minutes 30 seconds to march down the field. So you have an extended 2-minute drill with possibly 3 timeouts, 2 to 3 timeouts left. And the score is 28-20 because, we know that Slide missed the extra point. Could have been 28-21, 28-20. So in my mind, I don't even know how they mismanaged this situation. I'm not a professional coach, and I know how valuable that time was because they had a shot at another possession. Ron Rivera will also be out the door, and I hate it for Eric Bieniemy because as much as people I think have advocated for him to be a head coach, he went to a situation where he wouldn't be free and kind of, I think, show the world that he could be successful without Andy Reid. And I think to be honest for you, Luke, for about 50% of this season, he proved that. Like, he had Sam Howell and this offense humming along. They just couldn't win because their defense was giving up so much. Well, now the offense isn't even scoring points. So, but he benched Howell. He brought in Brissett. Brissett was able to get it done, but they mismanaged the clock. I don't know. I think this whole coaching staff is gone, though, for what it's worth.
I agree. I especially would have, like, if you want accountability, and we look at what the Chargers did, earlier in the week, accountability, they cleaned house right after that thumping. Everyone, almost everybody, gone.
GM, but Luch, they had to do it, right? Like, we know Justin Herbert wasn't playing, but don't we feel like this team has been unraveling since last season? Excuse me. Don't we feel like this team has been unraveling since before last season? Excuse me. Don't we feel like this team has been unraveling the season before the season last season? Like, this team's been unraveling, and they gave him plenty of chances. Guess what? I'm okay with that. I feel like the Chargers have been fair. They didn't let anybody force their hand. I think they said, okay, we're going to try to do this the right way, right? Look, I think they were very fair with Brandon Staley, man. Super fair, Luce. Don't you think? Like, he probably should have been gone last season, and they gave him another season to get it right, and it's gone downhill. Now, yes, I know they've had some injuries, but, I mean, the Raiders just put a stomping on it. I mean, it was bad play after bad play after bad play. And I think the Chargers, look, man, I mean, honestly, I'm going to clap it up for the Chargers because I think they were so fair. Like, that's the most fair they've been with the coach.
Absolutely. Yep. But they also, accountability right after the game, get rid of, many people of high positions. Ron Rivera should have been canned yesterday. Ron Rivera should have been gone yesterday. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know, unless the front office doesn't want Eric Bieniemy to get a hand in, the uppers, why are we not hiring, Bieniemy internally, like that kind of thing. He's going to get looks regardless to go somewhere else. And I think you made a really nice assessment. He's been pretty damn good. If I'm bringing him in for an interview next year, I say, listen, I like what you did. You've been a part of a lot of high profile coaching staffs. You're with Andy Reid and the Chiefs. You had a lot of creativity with Sam Howell, who I don't even know. Like, is he a starting quarterback for the next 5 years? Who knows? Like, who knows how to grade Sam Howell and what he's going to be? I really don't know. But, you can show enough on tape that there was some creativeness there. They're letting him sling it 50 times a game. That's for sure. But I say, I love what you did. And you know what I do? I throw up this sequence in the meeting room when I'm having my interview with Eric Bieniemy, and I said, you better have a damn good reasoning of what happened in this meltdown with the Rams game and what your hand in that whole situation was. Like, if he had power in that situation, it's absolutely embarrassing. Like, someone needs to be held accountable for that game.
He should have been calling the plays, though. That's the thing, Luke. Like, look, Eric Bieniemy, I don't think he's absolved here. He should have been calling the plays. No way I'm going to keep running the ball at that stage in the game. Now, look, Luke, hear me out here. On the 1 yard line, goal line, you handed off the first time. I get it. You should. Look, they get a touchdown on the first rushing attempt here. We're having a totally different discussion. Now, today, we're probably talking about how the Rams even let them back in this game, right? That's what we're talking about. But that's not what we're talking about. But at some point, like, come on, Eric. Like, what's the play call here? Like, come on, buddy.
By the way, the Rams are pretty sneaky. I may have had a little profit boost, and I may have sprinkled some lunch money in them at 80-1 before they beat New Orleans on this Thursday. Never know.
Okay.
Never know. 80-1. I'll take some wax.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I feel like they should have won that game by 28, but Kyron Williams fumbled twice. There was just some more.
Listen, they would have been up 21-0 quickly. 2 Kyron Williams fumbles at the most inopportune time cost them serious scoring opportunities there. They come out the second half. Stafford hits Cooper Kupp down the sideline. They just left him wide open. I think they brought him out of the back on a wheel route or something. It was some weird route combination that just had the secondary food, Luch. I mean, food down the sideline. And so the Rams did their job. They got the W. Every game isn't going to be pretty till the end. But the Washington Commanders definitely handed them a win, or at least less of a sweat at the end.
The reason we didn't mention the 49ers much is because they were so dominant. And I know they gave up 29 points, whatever. They were coasting at that point late. Brock Purdy looked great. Deebo Samuel doing his thing. Christian McCaffrey, monster game. Christian McCaffrey, the overall RB1 in fantasy drafts next year. There's no doubt about it at this point. Have to feel a little bit weird about drafting a 28-plus-year-old running back, 1.1 overall. But, I mean, in this system, there's always injury risk no matter who you draft. And we've seen that this season because half of the first 2 rounds got wiped out by injuries, in most snake draft formats. So the 49ers keep chugging along. They are a tier 1 team with Baltimore, and they're my 1A. You'll probably agree with me there. They're 1A. Like if you which is the best team in tier 1, it's the 49ers, I think. And that's not taking anything away from Baltimore. It's almost more impressive what Baltimore is doing with like the lesser amounts of talent, like you were talking about, at least on the offensive side of the ball. So kudos to the 49ers. And so we have a fun week of football. Smack dab in between the holiday season. We have a Thursday night game, which I talked about, Saints and the Rams. We don't have to spend really any time on that. But we have 2 Saturday games, Chief. And the first game is Cincinnati-Pittsburgh, which has a hell of a lot of playoff implications for everyone involved, right? Pittsburgh's kind of reeling now with obviously Trubisky, which I didn't think was going to be much of a downgrade from Kenny Pickett, but it is. And Jake Browning, who we talked about last week, and they just let it rip. They keep letting him run that same offense. They're passing at a high rate of neutral game scripts. And that's going to be a really fun 4:30 game. And then the 8 o'clock game is Buffalo going to the Chargers across the country. And normally, with the way they're reeling, Easton Stick looked horrible. It was bad. You would hope Buffalo can take care of business. And I think they will. But there's still that human aspect of sports where funny things happen when there's a new coaching regime the week after they get canned. We see it a lot in the NBA. Whenever there's some drastic shakeup, there's a little bit more of adrenaline because there's accountability. Everyone's going to be playing for a spot on for an NFL football franchise with a new coaching regime coming into town at some point. I think you might see a little more spunk from the Chargers, but I expect them to take care of business. Talk to me about Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. What your thoughts are of both of them. Obviously dealing with a hell of a lot of injury issues. What tier can you put those 2 teams on, and who do you expect to win that game Saturday between the Bengals and Steelers?
I'm going with the Bengals, and purely because I think the Bengals are I think they've got the momentum. I think the Steelers, man, as they're coming down. So let me say this. As much as I feel like maybe Kenny Pickett was not the answer in Pittsburgh, and I still don't think he's quite the answer. For whatever reason, they found ways to win games. And say what you want, Luch. Like, they didn't win every game, but I'm saying they found ways to win games with Kenny Pickett. That's not happening here with Trubisky. It's just not. They're losing. And, so I can't in good faith, Luch, say that I think the Steelers are going to win this game. I think the Bengals are going to win this game. And once again, I'm not backing off my stats. It's the NFL. The NFL, in my mind, for the rest of this season, stands for No Faith League. We've seen this song and dance before, Luch. Bengals are winning some games. They're riding high. And suddenly they put up a clunker against Pittsburgh and let Pittsburgh right back in the wild card. So I think the Bengals should win. I think the Bengals have the most momentum, and I'm going to stick with that. But I don't feel great about it.
So many big games. Sunday's card, Cleveland and Houston. A lot of playoff implications on the line there between Cleveland and Houston. And I don't know if you can see behind me, but my apologies. If you missed any of our previous shows, we adopted kittens, and they're absolutely just flying around right now, living their best lives. They're like 2 pounds, and they're just zooming.
Living my best life.
What's your favorite? What's your favorite impersonation to do? Do you have like a go-to? in all your years of stand up?
Nah, I don't really have a go-to. I just it's just part of the comedy, man. It just happens to flow. Like it's so for me, and let me say this too. This will be story time, a short story time, and then we can just close the show out at the end. This will be story time in the middle since you asked me that question, Luke. So when I did stand up, I did actually write material, but I didn't write it out as if I wrote out the whole joke. I wrote down ideas. So let's say I was out and about somewhere, I was in a restaurant and I saw something funny. I just write it down and say, oh, I thought that was funny. I'm at Walmart, I'm at the mall, I'm at the car dealership, wherever, I'm sitting at home on my couch, I see a funny commercial. I write, oh yeah, that was funny. I like that. Like, and not to take it, but to turn it into a comedic presentation. You know what I mean? And so that's what I ended up doing with comedy. And some of that meant that, I had to imitate, how I think a policeman would say something or how I felt like a doctor would say something, just stuff like that. And so it ended up being pretty fun. I had a good time doing stand up, and I'm not gonna say I was Kevin Hart or Steve Harvey or Gabriel Iglesias. I'm not gonna say I was any of those guys, but I was pretty funny. I stuck with it. Maybe Chief walks a different path, and maybe I am on a couple stages doing some sets, but I did it. It was fun. I enjoyed it. It was amazing. And there's nothing like doing stand-up comedy, man. Like going on stage and you're in front of people you don't know, Luch. And here's the thing about stand-up. It's not like sitting in class making people laugh. When you walk on that stage, people are not necessarily paying you when you're at the level I was at. I was just in college, at a local club, just getting in, once a week. But people are expecting you to walk on stage and make, like, the expectation is they want to laugh. It's a totally different vibe. And you kind of have to get your flow with the audience, right? At least from my perspective, when I went out there, I may have like in my mind, like, okay, this is kind of how I want to craft my 15 minutes, my 20 minutes, and then lose. The interaction with the audience could take this thing to a totally different place. And so for me, I was big on punchlines. I was big on punchlines, Luke. And I know we got to get back to football. It's a football show. Sorry, guys, for the rabbit hole here. I was big on punchlines. And so, Luke, when I found, like, if I'm interacting with the audience and I found a punchline that I felt like they could just connect with, some way I would just keep rolling that punchline into another joke. And they wouldn't see it coming until it was like, oh, he got us again with the punchline. So, and I'll say one of my favorite comedians that I saw in person at a local comedy club as well. This is when I went out, me and my friends went out to a comedy club just to kind of laugh and have some fun. This was when smartphones were first like coming in, people were swiping and touching the screen, and a guy really put together a really good set just talking about the swipe and swiping the phone and just how people, it was so creative, man. One of the funniest sets I've seen. I can't remember the guy's name. Absolutely one of the funniest sets I've seen from a no-name comedian. Just incredible stuff. So anyway, love stand-up comedy. That's how I got there. Story time's done, folks. So back to football, and we'll close this thing out with football.
I have a brief story time at the end. It'll be quick, I promise.
Yes.
Cool stuff though, man. And man, that brought back a flashback. Yeah, so you're a couple years older than me, so that makes sense if you were like doing the college thing and I was like in one of my years of high school. But I remember like right when that smartphone era came out or whatever, my buddy got the Motorola Gold Razor. I was like, oh man, you got the Razor. Remember the Razor phones? Like that was in the era of like Blackberries and the little candy bar phones and stuff. And I remember it was always funny when you accidentally went on the internet, right? Because you hit the button. Oh my God, AT&T is gonna charge me, by the second for hitting the internet. Now we live on our phones. We're always connected. It's just crazy how in the last 15 years, technology has evolved in our little hands here. It's like we go from, oh my God, I accidentally clicked on the internet, I'm gonna get charged another $100, right? Now it's like if you're not on the internet on your phone, you can't live without it. So just funny how how things change. But since you're good at imitating impersonations, is there an impersonator in this Cleveland-Houston game? Cleveland's the 5 seed right now in the AFC. Houston clinging to that 8 seed. I'm imagining we see CJ Stroud play. I'm imagining we see Nico Dell play. I do think this offense is going to be, I'll be objectively a little bit worse without Tank Dell with how damn good he's been, since he unfortunately went down. But do you have any expectations for either one of these teams? And are either of them contenders for the Super Bowl, or with their situations, are they kind of just imitating right now?
As long as CJ Stroud is not playing, I'm going to give this nod to the Browns. If CJ Stroud is playing, then I'll revisit it. And which he might play this week because he was in protocol last week. So if he plays, I think the Texans have a much better shot. But listen to me, man. I think Joe Flacco and what he's doing with this Browns team, Luke, sorry. What's happening is you're getting a veteran mind with a old frame. So it's not like Joe Flacco's young and spry, and he's never been like extremely mobile. But what you're getting, Luch, is an old school gunslinger out here in this offense that's making things happen. And look, let me tell you something. Did you see that pass he threw to Amari Cooper yesterday between 3 people in zone coverage? That was between 3 people. Like, that was pinpoint accuracy. And Amari Cooper just runs into the end zone. Now, Amari Cooper had to create on the end. But listen, Joe Flacco, a throw for Joe, man. Like, and that's what you're getting here. He's pretty fresh. Hasn't played much all season. Boy, don't the Jets maybe wish they had him suiting up for those 5 or 6 weeks, 10 weeks that Aaron Rodgers was out. Now, I'm exaggerating because Aaron Rodgers was out the whole season. But if Joe Flacco plays in some of those games, maybe the Jets win 3 or 4 more. And Aaron Rodgers decides, hey, Joe, thanks. I'll come back and relieve you those duties as an example. But if Stroud doesn't play, I'm giving a nod to the Browns.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm with that. I think another interesting matchup, obviously Detroit and Minnesota, because Minnesota is currently the 6th. There's a logjam of 7 and 7 NFC teams. And I can't back this Minnesota team with their state of the union right now. No. I mean, hell of a game. It was very entertaining against the Bengals. That was a fun game. But
listen,
they hold on one second. They are in the playoff hunt. You can't take that away from Viking. Like, if you're a fan, you're like, hey, let's do this thing, right? And they're taking on Detroit, who's 10-4 right now. But with the state of the Eagles situation, if the Eagles do lose to Seattle on Monday night, both teams are 10-4, and there's a chance that Detroit catches and passes the Eagles this season. So pretty big game for everyone involved in terms of divisional rivalries in the playoff picture. Go ahead.
Well, here's the thing. What I was going to say is there is a game of the week, Luch, and it's once again going to include the Dallas Cowboys. It just is, right? Like, we saw them go to Buffalo and get shellacked. What happens, Luch, if they go to Miami? I don't feel like they have to win in Miami for what it's worth, because I feel like their seed is already cemented at this point. I don't think the Eagles are going to lose tonight, and I don't think they're losing next week against the Giants, for what it's worth. I don't think. But Luch, if the Cowboys lose to the Dolphins by more than 20, it's going to be ugly in Dallas. I can tell you that right now. It's going to be real ugly in Dallas. And I think that's the game of the week. Inversely, if Miami wins in convincing fashion, then I think we're going to start distancing ourselves a little bit further away from that loss to Tennessee.
It's tier 2 football, baby. I mean, it's food for thought. Tier 2 football.
Tier 2 football. Luke's statement of the rest of this season. It's tier 2 football. We don't know what's going to happen.
It's 1.5 point spread, but I wouldn't be shocked if either team won by 3 touchdowns with how volatile they've been and how, right when you buy in, they let you down. It's like the story of both teams here. I think a win for either team would just would go a long way in terms of just for their building the locker room. Like, if we're thinking about this, you damn well know there's players inside of each organization that are saying, we really need this one to gauge ourselves here to know that we got it. as much pressure as Dallas will bring, and they love to play a lot of man coverage, single high. That's why I thought those Eagles-Dallas games were really fascinating, because they both play man coverage single high at a really high rate. Tua has had 56 dropbacks against man coverage single high. He's got a 131 quarterback rating, which is second best in the NFL against that coverage. So we'll see, man. We saw Josh Allen in the same matchup yesterday. He didn't even have to do anything. He threw for 97 yards. It was the James Cook breakout game. We didn't even talk about it, which even so much further blows my mind that the Philadelphia Eagles could not or refuse to run the ball with any of this run game that they have behind that offensive line against Dallas. Like how is Philadelphia behind this offensive line, right? Lane Johnson, Jason Kelsey podcast. You have these guys who are just maulers up front. If I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I'm saying, if I'm on the Eagle staff, we need to run the ball against this Cowboys team if and when they pop up again. If James Cook's a great player. I'm thrilled that they're finally kind of almost slowly centering this offense more to him and less to Stephon Diggs. And guess what? It works. And Stephon Diggs will get his, no doubt. And Dalton Kincaid didn't even have a catch. Did he even have a catch yesterday? I don't think so.
I mean, but Josh he barely threw the ball.
Exactly.
He threw it 15 times.
So
plenty of guys didn't get anything.
So, and we a couple weeks ago, I talked about, before the Bills kind of started stringing together some dubs here, about how stale it got, giving Dalton Kincaid and Diggs 25 targets to combine a game. Much easy to game plan when you know where 65 to 70% of the volume's going. Well, you add the James Cook element in, right, in the pass game, a little bit more in the pass game, second half of the season, and he did it on the ground. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting spot. Can the Dolphins' offensive line hold up against Micah Parsons and company? Half of that team's been in a body bag the last couple of weeks. They really got hit by injuries in that Titans game. It's a game in the trenches. Going to be one in the trenches. I feel like such a high school football coach saying that. But I think if they give Tua some time against this man coverage and Tyreek is back, it's a perfect spot for Miami at home to kind of make their statement.
Yeah, love that call. Love that call for sure.
That's Christmas Eve, so we have just an amazing Christmas Eve slate. Jacksonville, Tampa, the division-leading Bucks. They're rooting for the Rams on Thursday. Here's the thing we didn't mention. Trevor Lawrence actually went into concussion protocol this morning. So we'll see. I mean, he's got till Sunday afternoon, but obviously, as disappointing as he's kind of been for the most part, he's obviously an upgrade from CJ coming in. But Tampa Bay, it's of course, as a fan and as an organization, you want to raise the banner. You want to win the division, and your favorite teams in that division. But none of those teams are set up for the future right now. I don't think they're close. I think Mike Evans is going to walk too for Tampa. Each team has some pieces, and you talked about players coming into bad situations. What about coaches? You think Arthur Smith was thrilled about Desmond Ridder? Or what if the Robert Saleh and DeMeco Ryans lobbying for head coaching spots were flipped, and DeMeco Ryans was in New York and Robert Saleh was in Houston, right? But getting back to the NFC South, you win this division, I mean, you're gonna be one and done, most likely in the playoffs, and you draw the number one strength of schedule out of your division competition for next season. You almost get set back by winning the NFC South this year and probably being a one and done, when I think all these teams are pretty damn far away from being legit Super Bowl contenders. What do you even root for as a fan? Of course you want to win the division. You're a Buccaneers fan, post Tom Brady. You want to see your boys in the playoffs, of course. But it might be hellish, scary times, moving forward. I mean, it's been a nice little run for your boy Baker.
Not if the Dallas Cowboys have got to come to town. They can't win on the road. I'd love to see Dallas go to Tampa Bay first round of the playoffs. That's an example. I'm not even sure how it breaks out in terms of the standings right now. But listen, Buccaneers get a shot at one home game. They got a shot to get out of the playoffs at least, or to get one under their belts and then lose. anything can happen. It's the no faith league.
You're right.
Anything can
You're
happen in
right.
the
You're
NFL
right.
unless they got to go to San Francisco, and that's the bottom line.
Anything
The
could happen except
Buccaneers,
winning in San Francisco.
and as I say that, all it takes is Brock Purdy to go down in that game, and all of a sudden we might be singing a different tune.
Well, you kind of contradicted yourself there a little bit because earlier in the show you said, "What if Brock Purdy was in Denver?" Which I understand. I mean, okay, and the skill players in San Fran are second to none, no doubt, no doubt. But Brock Purdy can throw some ball. Like, there's so much talk everywhere about it's bubble screen, it's design stuff. He can spin it a little bit, man. But I see what you're saying. The opportunity might not have came up. First of all, in another situation, you're stuck behind Russell Wilson and his bajillion dollars. They're not going to play Brock Purdy over you unless something happens, right? But this was almost a Drew Bledsoe. I'm not. Look, oh God, before this gets blown out of context, Brock Purdy's not Tom Brady. No. But it was almost a Drew Bledsoe got hurt and his next man up. Here we go. Let's do this thing. Tom Brady. What? We know the story. Almost wasn't drafted. And well, holy shit, here we are. He's pretty damn good. So it was a little lucky, right? Like obviously some scout somewhere, the organization had to have faith in Brock Purdy in the scouting and knew the name. But the card's broken in such an just a peculiar way for the way the quarterback timeline was playing out in San Francisco that here's Brock Purdy and he's pretty good. So like what's your how do you really feel about Brock Purdy? Let me ask you that. Give me your real Brock Purdy thoughts.
No. So for me, here's what I think. Like I think Brock Purdy's fine. I don't think Brock Purdy's a bad quarterback. Like I've never felt like Brock Purdy was a bad quarterback. Did I feel like Brock Purdy was being possibly overrated because of the situation? Yes. So, as an example, Luke, if you took Brock Purdy and sent him to Carolina right now, do we still win football games? No. If you take Brock Purdy and you send him to Tampa Bay, do they win more football games? Maybe. If you sent Brock Purdy to Atlanta, do they win more football games? Probably. If you sent Brock Purdy to the Jets, do they win more football games? Probably. If you sent Brock Purdy to Kansas City, do they win more football games? No, I don't think so. If you send them to Dallas, do they win more football games? No. Philly, no. Minnesota,
Yep.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm. You do.
I'm saying maybe because for a good portion of Minnesota's season now, Justin Jefferson has been out. You get what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. It's like, if you send them to the Bears, do they win more football games? Maybe. But why am I bringing this up, Luch? Situation matters. And that's the thing with the NFL that I think is the gray area, right? And I know we've harped on this all podcasts, but I think it's important for us to understand as fans and analysts and people that listen to the pod, situation matters so much. You get an incompetent coaching staff that wants to call the game a certain way, and they're committed to calling it that way, even to their detriment.
Oh, I understand.
It's like
revisit the Derrick Henry conversation.
Yeah, it'll kill your career. So when you got a team like Shanahan or a coach like Shanahan who's creative, you got a coach like McDaniels who's creative, you get a coach like McVay who's creative, right? You get those creative, you get a coach like Andy Reid who's creative, and suddenly it can change your career. It doesn't change your season. It changes your career, Luch. But certain coaches change your career in the opposite direction. And that's what I think we're seeing with Justin Fields. That's what I think we're seeing with Bryce Young. That's what I think we're seeing with, let's call it Will Levis. That's what I think we're seeing with the New York Giants. And I know Brian Dable, we want to call him a mastermind. He has not been able to get Danny Dimes going. I don't care what they say. Danny Dimes has not really been good. Okay, so I don't want you see what I'm saying, because I think he's committed to a certain style, and there needed to be a little bit more of an evolution of Daniel Jones. And look, I may be on an island about this, but I think we were last season, Luch, they dangled the carrot and everybody took the bait because the Giants won some football games, but they still weren't really a good football team like that. They still, you see what I'm saying?
To
But
me,
they showed
it's almost like
they
the
showed
Buccaneers
improvement.
situation. It's to me that's like the Buccaneers in 2023, and I don't mean that to be like mean or disrespectful, but they could win the division, and I know the Giants didn't win the division, but things played out in their favor, and they were like slightly better than 500. But they a good football team. They're tier 3. They're just in
Yeah.
the they're in the lunch line, man, but they're not eating. Like it's just who they are. Yeah, a lot of good stuff here. I love chopping it up with you about this stuff. Looking at the Sunday main slate, that Miami Dallas game has a 1.5 point spread and the highest total at 51. Dak and Tua on DK are both priced just like it. Dak is the highest priced quarterback for the Sunday main slate, 7,900. Tua is at 7,800. You do have Justin Fields at 7,100 against Arizona. And I'm kind of feeling like that's going to be the public guy, right? Probably. Because you got CJ Stroud right under him against Cleveland, maybe some Jared Goff after the monster game against Minnesota. But the Vikings have been low-key pretty good defensively. Trevor Lawrence, is he going to play against Tampa Bay? 6,600. Jordan Love against Carolina. Your Panthers have been pretty stingy against the pass. I will say that. So I'm not really feeling Jordan Love. Kyler Murray against Chicago, pretty cheap rushing upside. Maybe it's another Baker Mayfield week against the Jaguars, who cannot stop a nosebleed against the pass at 6K. I said I didn't think Tampa Bay was a good team, but it doesn't mean Baker and these receivers can't ball out in a good matchup, and we saw that. We saw that happen in Week 15. So Baker's 6K at home against the Jags. I don't mind that at all. What are your thoughts on Dak and Tua being the highest priced quarterbacks in that game? Do you think there'll be points in that game? You think it'll live up to the Vegas projected hype right now?
I do think there are going to be some points. I mean, we saw the Buffalo Bills score 31 points, and I think their offense is more explosive it's less explosive than Miami in a nutshell. If we get Tyreek back, it's going to get ugly here. So I don't know if Dallas actually has answers for the Miami offense. The question is, can Dallas keep up? We got to find out this week. I think the points will be there, though. Dallas definitely doesn't come out and score 3 points this week or 10 points. I think they put points on the board.
Yeah, I just think it comes down to the health of that Dolphins offensive line because, you have some motion plays and you have, some quick pass stuff. But when Tua and this offense are doing damage, they're using play action. They are using motion, some of it together. But it's just this longer developing stuff, to try to get your guys open. But, Robert Hunt, I don't know what his status is. He's listed out in the ESPN depth chart. Austin Jackson had an oblique strain against the Jets. So, two guys on the right side of that offensive line who I'm not sure what it's going to be looking like. And, of course, Connor Williams is on IR after the game against the Titans. That's the starting center. So, Miami could be without half of an offensive line again. And obviously, it wasn't really an issue against the Jets. But, you just can't say that the Cowboys are incompetent like the Jets are offensively. Like you said, they're going to put some drives together, put them some points. So I think that's where the battle is, and we'll see. So, yeah, I do think you could get a ceiling game out of one of them. I do. I think Justin Fields is probably the per dollar guy against Arizona, but man, am I kind of glued to Baker Mayfield at 6K on this slate right now against Jacksonville. We'll have to see what happens here. I guess another storyline we haven't talked about in a while is Jonathan Taylor going to come back and play? Because, we know what the upside he brings. So interesting for the Colts. Absolutely atrocious performance from the whole team, but Bijan Robinson getting 7 carries, killing people in the fantasy playoffs for Atlanta. We briefly visited that. But
listen, we don't even want to talk about what Bijan Robinson did to me on Prize Picks and Underdog yesterday. Luch, if Bijan Robinson just gets the 15 carries he's supposed to get, this is what I'm saying. Arthur Smith needs to be out of there. What is he doing? Runs Cordell Patterson, runs Tyler Algier more than Bijan Robinson. And Luch, that cost me so many 25x slips. I nailed that game. And I was on that game early before, once I knew the weather was going to be, and I live in the area, Luch. So I knew what the weather was like. I had boots on the ground, access to the actual weather, and I nailed that game, Luch. Now, look, made good money on that game, Luch. Don't get me wrong. Like, it was, I mean, I've been on a pretty good stretch here, Luch, since Friday. Like, whew, it's been spectacular. But my point is, come on, man. We draft a running back in the first round, and we give him 7 carries in a monsoon. Like, come on, man. Come on. Get Arthur Smith out of there.
I like Kenneth Walker at running back against the Titans. I kind of talked about them missing Tahir Tart and Jeffrey Simmons, and I don't think Jeffrey Simmons will play another down this year. Precautionary, lock them up with the big contract. They're mathematically eliminated. Time to gear up for next year, spend the $100 million. No reason for Jeffrey Simmons to play. So I do kind of like Kenneth Walker at that price. I know if you're game log hunting, it's ugly and he was hurt, but I don't think that you're going to see the same type of negative game script for Seattle against Tennessee next week, pending there's no injuries on Monday Night Football, because you never know. But that's just another name that stuck out to me here. I mean, if you're going to play that Miami game, you know, you're going to be paying for it. Tyreek's 9,600, CD Lamb's 9,200. Another kind of sneaky-ish game is that Detroit-Minnesota game. Fairly high total. Justin Jefferson, 8,100. I understand who's throwing him the football, right? That matters. But, you know, if you're looking for more of a budgetable, maybe game environment, maybe you look to Detroit-Minnesota, you know?
Yeah, I don't hate it. It's just going to be a wild week of football, man. A wild week. And then we got more Saturday games, too, which I do like. So the Bills are going to just smoke the Chargers. Like, I mean, man, whatever the props come out at, like they didn't let Josh Allen throw last week, Luch. Like they just kind of helped put the muzzle on him. I think they're going to unleash him this week. Like, why wouldn't you against one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL? Like they should unleash him this week.
Well, we got 3 games on Monday as well, and I agree with that take. By the way, now Las Vegas, Kansas City, Giants, Eagles. Baltimore, San Fran. One thing we did not talk about. 2 more things I want to talk about. Then we're a quick story time. We're out of here. Eagles switching play callers on defense. Matt Patricia. We talked about Matt Patricia many times in the past. Failed as a head coach, but boy, we love him as a coordinator. And I think this is to just switch up like this in the middle of the year. We'll see how it works. But this guy knows how to call defense. He did it for years in New England. They can't just keep running the same. We've had multiple guys on the show. We've talked about it. You know, Philly just runs the same, stock 4 pass rush. They don't get coverage sacks like they did last year. It's not the same pass rush as it was. And I don't care who we are. If you give any NFL receiver more than enough time, like you're going to get open. It's just the hard, being a cornerback in the NFL or anybody in the secondary has to be the hardest position to play outside of quarterback. It's just, anybody with time is going to get you eventually. So maybe Matt Patricia, maybe starting with the Seattle game, we'll figure out how to dial up some different things, or maybe it just completely backfires. We will see what happens, but definitely worth noting. What's your take on Matt Patricia getting the nod to essentially become the defensive coordinator, starting with the game in Seattle?
I don't know if we get to see much. And let me tell you why I say that. He gets Seattle with no Geno Smith this week, and he gets the Giants coming up with no Daniel Jones. And I'm not a big believer in Daniel Jones, but you get what I'm saying? Like, he doesn't really get what I consider to be all the way competent quarterback play. Not a knock on Drew Lock or a knock on Tommy DeVito, who I think is going into concussion protocol maybe. But my point is, he's not going to get a real test until the week 18 when they play the Giants again. So I really don't want to read too much into this, Luch, until we see them in the playoffs and they have to play a playoff game, which very well could be who against maybe the Rams. I don't know. We'll have to look and see how it shakes out, but he might not have a real challenge until the first round of the playoffs. And that's just the truth. But I think if they play shutout football, I think that will cement realistically. They play shutout football. I think people will say, okay, look, maybe they played a bad quarterback, but they played shutout football. Like, it's still hard to shut out football teams in the NFL.
Finally, we have both of our food for thought tier 1 teams duking it out on Monday Night Football. San Francisco 5.5 point favorites against Baltimore. I need your prediction for this game.
And guess what? We're going to figure out real quick. My prediction is this. I'm not going to go against San Francisco at home. That's it. That's the deciding factor for me. Now, here's what I will say, Luch. If the sports books get a little crazy, we might have some opportunity. I think Baltimore can win this game for what it's worth, but I can't go against San Francisco at home. And me saying this out loud, Luch, no faith league. We got 2 tier 1 teams. Somebody's got to win. I think it's San Francisco. I think they have better skill position weapons, where Lamar lacking the skill position weapons may actually hurt him in this game. But Luch, if it's close, and these teams have to have a tussle later on, if the Ravens have got enough data on this team from this matchup and they lost it close, I'll probably take the Ravens in the Super Bowl if both teams make it back. For what it's worth. Do you get what I'm saying here? I think you're picking up what I'm putting down.
I am. I'm kind of on the opposite side of the build. So I think this will be a nice conversation next week. I think the Niners make a statement. I think it's like 31-20. And I think we have a discussion about where we jumping the gun on Baltimore being a tier 1 team next week. We'll see what happens. We'll see. I do like the Niners at home regardless. That was kind of a hot take, winning by 11. But is it though, really? I mean, is it? We'll see. I mean, Lamar means so much to that offense. See what kind of game plan San Francisco has, right? I mean, he just is accountable for so much of that production. It's crazy. I'm excited for it. That's the game of the week. And, of course, the NFL is going to make us wait all damn weekend for that. Story time, real quick. Remember last year, we usually talk about positive experiences. You went on your Hardee's rant, and you had some poor service at Hardee's. I will not forget that. And I don't think I've had Hardee's since, by the way. So your influence on me has done wonders, I suppose. I went out to a local place. I'm not going to name drop the place. I'll get them on Yelp or Google reviews or wherever, where actually matters, why not? Why be petty when I could just take the gloves off? And online reviews mean everything in this day and age, right? I was excited for this place. It was kind of touted as a decent little like breakfast, brunch, whatever. I had some family in town this weekend, and my uncle's from Brooklyn. And, you're a New Yorker, you're different. You expect things, fast paced, whatever, which could sometimes be mistaken for, being rude or arrogant when that's just like how people are in New York, but they're not. I'm the first one to call my uncle out on things when I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like shut up, like stop, whatever, politely, of course. But he was not in the wrong in this situation. And, we were waiting, the waiter comes over, whatever, blah, blah, blah. What do you want? He got a coffee. He didn't bring any milk or cream or anything with the coffee. And I don't know, 2 minutes went by, whatever. And it was a little bit busy, but it wasn't like, oh, people are waiting in line to be sat or anything. And my uncle just said something like, milk for the coffee. Like, wasn't rude about it. Could he been a little bit nicer? I don't know. He wasn't unnice. Just, he just pointed the coffee and was like, saw the waiter going by and look for. The guy comes over to the table, and maybe, young Luch would have handled this more reactive. Maybe I would have, just, I don't know, said something I may have regretted or just left or walked out. I don't know. And my uncle kind of being a New Yorker, no filter, loose cannon. I was like, oh, well, Vegas odds says minus 250. One of us is going to make this awkward or, but it's also rarely where I get I don't really, I typically get pretty good service. And, I'm a good tipper. I used to serve tables in the industry. Like, I understand. I spend times in restaurants. We like going to restaurants and different bars. Like, I understand the grind and the hustle. Like, you take care of me, I take care of you. Like, I tip no less than 18%, and often I tip more than 20% if I'm out. I get it.
Right.
Like, it's a grind.
Yeah.
So my my uncle said, milk for the coffee, kind of just like pointed to the cup. And the guy comes over and said, "Didn't you see me at that other table over there? I didn't forget about you." It's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know it was our job to come in on this establishment and watch you work. Didn't you see me over there?" Me and him just looked at each other, and then he looked at his girlfriend, and I looked at Taylor, and it was like the girls were looking at us like, "All right, which one of you is going to go off on this guy?" Right? And me and my uncle just kind of looked at each other, and the guy walked away, and I was like, "Yeah, we handled that much differently than maybe we did." But he didn't. He could have came over and was like, "Sorry, like I was really busy, like whatever." He could. I didn't expect like a full like haiku of his, why he was apologetic
haiku,
or something.
Folks,
right?
Go look up the word haiku if you don't know what it means. I know what it means. I'm just going to tell you it's a poem, but go look this up. Oh, Luch, very good alliteration, sir. I did not expect the word haiku to come up today.
I didn't expect I didn't expect a haiku or a love letter. He could have just said sorry about that, like was really busy, whatever. But ever since then, like he must have noticed because he was like the nicest person, like whatever. But it was very snippy, and he even had like the mannerisms, like, "Didn't you see me over there? I didn't forget about you." I'm like, easy, man. Like, all right, like and coffee's a hot drink, so you want to drink. If you like hot coffee, you first of all, you bring milk or half and half over with it typically when you're in a restaurant, by the way. So he struck out there to begin with. So so he effed up his tip. That's all I gotta say. And I couldn't tell you the last time I tipped poorly because it's hard work, man. Blue collar stuff, waiting tables, but does it kill you to be a little bit nicer, especially in the holiday season, Chief? Come on, man.
Hey, I'm nice all the time, brother. I'm nice all the time. So listen, if I've got to like tell a story about bad service, it's bad service. You can ask my wife. I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. I understand people have bad days. You can have stuff going on at home. You can have a sick parent. Like there are a lot of things that can influence what you think, but I don't feel like, and you could be sad or say, my bad, I forgot what, maybe you're spaced out. But I don't think there's ever a situation where we have to be rude with someone in that fashion. Like, I'm an adult, you're an adult. Hey, buddy, like let's you know what I mean?
Yeah,
let's get it together here.
I waited tables for a couple of years, like, and I was young in college and naive and arrogant. Man, I'm a pretty polite dude, like, but younger, person, young 20. I've had some bad, consumer experiences when I was on the server end, but I would never for a call for like that situation. It's one thing if you disrespect me or something like that, but
that's a different scenario. Totally different scenario.
Come on, I'm just trying to have an omelet, man. Drink some coffee, like let's do this thing. But anyway, happy holidays to everybody. Whether you celebrated Hanukkah, Christmas is coming up. We're gonna have a show. We have one wedged between the new year, right? Yeah, of course. Oh, okay. So that's Christmas. So don't know when we're going to record next week.
But we will be back.
We will have a food for thought next week. Maybe we could bump it to Tuesday since like half the NFL plays on Christmas anyway.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Hanukkah. We did a little bit of both in this household in my religiously blended family. So, we did a little bit of both. And you got any good plans for this weekend, buddy? Before we head out of here.
I think for this weekend, man, I'm just going to be, if I'm not mistaken, hanging out with the wife. I'll be doing content and just enjoying the holiday season. I love the holidays. I love Christmas and seeing family, put up decorations, watching Christmas movies, listening to Christmas music. Like I like it all. So, Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy holidays to everyone. And we just, once again, man, so grateful that you guys take time to listen to our podcast and listen to us rave and rant and talk a little DFS at the same time.
Yes, sir. And just remember, if you ask for milk for your coffee, just better be careful. For my guy here, Will Priester, thanks for sticking with us, by the way. We appreciate you guys. I'm the Luch. Have a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you sometime next week.